Mortal Kombat 11 makes some fundamental changes to the combat that never seemed like it was necessary. However, in doing so, not only has it made it feel a little bit more accessible for new users, but there's a lot of depth and layers to this that wasn't previously found in previous games to make it also one of the most advanced fighting games in the series history. In Mortal Kombat 11, it is essentially one-on-one, as you may expect, and in this game there's a lot of new nuances to sort of make it feel a lot more deeper, from everything from breakaways to how the meter management works to crushing blows, brutalities, fatalities and so much more. So people who've played previous games, the first thing you will notice is the game moves quite a bit slower. Not drastically slower, we're not getting to the point where it's like Soul Calibur or something like that, but things feel like a lot more tactical and sort of you need to think a bit more about your movement and your opponent's movement more than other games. Not only that, there's no more running in the game, which means sort of rushing towards your opponent at the start of a match or sort of as a approach kind of doesn't work as much anymore. There are some moves that sort of close down the gap a lot quickly from certain characters, but for the most part this game is slower and more methodical. One of the other major things you will see is a difference to how the meter management works. Now there's a defensive meter and an attack meter. The defense meter is used for things like breakaways and engaging with the environment, while the attack meter helps amplify your moves and sort of creates moves that give a bit more damage as well as open up for sort of more juggling or combos, and that's also done in the crushing blows. Crushing blows take place when you meet a certain number of conditions within a match, and it could be something as simple as an uppercut that's done as a counter, which will sort of take a little bit more health off and open up the opponent for more attacks than would normally be possible with that attack as it is. On top of that, then you have the brutalities, which once again is similarly you do a certain number of conditions to end the match in a kill, like a very swift brutal kill, and as you may expect, fatalities are here, I should say, and they are more gory and over the top than ever before. And the last thing to talk about really in the combat that's sort of different is the fatal blows. So you may remember the X-ray moves from previous games where you build up a meter and it sort of gives you an insight of you crushing bones and parts of the body. Here it is possible to activate once you are 30% or lower in health, and sort of gives you as this last desperate attempt to sort of pull the match back if you're behind. In terms of whether it's a good fighting system or not, I think it's probably the best it's ever been, just simply because it's slower but also deeper, meaning that you can add a lot more strategies to your fighting play. You can be a bit more defensive, and overall, like, I felt myself even playing as one character, which I mostly actually use Sub-Zero, and I could just feel myself change things up a little from match to match just to keep things fresh. And that's amplified as well by a lot of different unlockables and customizations. So you have a certain few special moves that you can create your own loadout, which will then allow these special moves to be used, but they won't be available maybe in a different loadout, or eventually you can unlock custom loadouts so you can build it exactly to the way you want to. And this, as well as all the other mechanics I've mentioned before, makes it a much deeper and complex game than it's ever been. And as on a core fighting thing, it's incredibly smooth, fast. It's fast at 60 frames a second. And just overall really satisfying to play, whether it's for short or long sessions. On top of just the gameplay, the core combat, you have the story, which is 4 to 6 hours of absolutely crazy bonkersness. There's not a ton of fights in there, but there's a lot of cutscenes, and honestly the story is just well worth just sitting there and enjoying, turn on some headphones or whatever and sitting back and relaxing at absolute craziness that takes place in front of you. Probably the best part of it all is the sort of time traveling bit where the old characters meet with the new characters and sort of how they bounce off each other, and I think the highlight of that is Johnny Cage, and it's a fun story. It's definitely like way better than it needs to be for a fighting game. But on top of that, you have the classic towers, you have Towers of Time, and then also there's the Crypt. So in terms of content alone, there is a ton. Like, and I'm not even talking about online. Online has its own suite of features, which is really cool for those that really want competitive play, and honestly the netcode in it, I never saw one issue whatsoever. So if you want to play online only, it's totally worth the price of admission because it is so reliable. Excuse me. So the crypt is a bit of an unusual one, so that's where all the unlockables come from. You visit Shang Tsung's island, and for those who love the previous games, it is a great throwback. There are great moments where you say, oh, I remember this level and I remember that level, stuff like the bridge and so many other things that you look at, and it reminds you, for old school fans, there's plenty of nods, which is pretty cool. But basically while you're there is you arrive on this island and there are a load of chests everywhere, and you use your various currencies that you build up through playing through the game, from pulling off fatalities as well as completing towers, to then unlock a bunch of cosmetics and stuff like brutalities and that. And for the most part it's random, which is kind of unusual, but it just feels like there could have been a lot more to it. It almost feels like a proof of concept if they can make a third person sort of action exploration game with the engine and what they have there, and it works, it's functional. But after a little bit of time I kind of had enough of it. So it's not as enjoyable as I wanted it to be. There's not enough to do while you're exploring it. You find some items, there are some like little jump scare moment things, but there's just not enough going on to me to make a like sort of one of the cool features of it. But that doesn't matter, because from around the 25 characters that you get to play between, to all the different types of content and the mutators to the Tower of Time and all the classic towers and just basic one-on-one, there's so much to unlock and there's so much to do, and everything looks incredible, number one, and plays so well that Mortal Kombat 11 could be the only fighting game you would need for casual and hardcore fans for a long time to come.
Fatality. Sub-Zero wins.